Mr. Loidl, thank you for the interview about the election today. So can you tell us more about the information and the analyze about the result today?
Thank you very much, first of all, for this opportunity to explain to your audience the results of the Austrian presidential elections, where the final results came in yesterday. The current president ends his mandate beginning of July after 12 years in office. And I mention this because our current president is a big friend of Vietnam. Mr. Fischer in 2012 had an official state visit here in Vietnam, but as I said, his mandate is coming to an end. In April, there was the first round of presidential elections among 6 candidates, an unusually large field for Austrian presidential elections. But only the 2 candidates with the most votes continued to the second round of presidential elections, which took place last Sunday. The result was a very close one. It could not be announced on Sunday, as also the mailed-in ballots had to be counted in order to establish the result. The 2 candidates were one candidate from the Freedom Party, Mr. Norbert Hofer, and the other candidate was a politician from the Green Party, Mr. Alexander from the Bellon, who both campaigned on very different approaches. One candidate, Mr. Hofer, more or less relied on a very nationalistic, inward-looking campaign, whereas Mr. van der Bellen gave a very clear signal of wanting to be an outward-looking, internationally minded president. As I said, the results were very close. The 2 candidates were apart, only 30,000 votes. Mr. van der Bellen is the winner of the presidential election and gained 50.6% of the vote. Almost 50% votes were cast for Mr. Norbert Hofer, who gained 49.7%. So again, this was the closest result we had in presidential elections in Austria in the Second Republic.
So what is the positive prospect that the winning of Mr. van der Bellen bring to the country?
I think first of all it is a good decision for Austria. Mr. van der Bellen will be a president for all the Austrians, not only for those which voted for him, but he will also take in the concerns of those which voted for his opponent. Secondly, I think it is also a very good decision and a very good outcome for Europe, for European countries, as it is a very clear signal that Austria will continue to be an open, liberal-minded country in the European Union and will be very positive about all the projects in the European Union and will be very positive about developments in Europe.
Some said that the election result in Austria will help relieve the pressure on the right of far-right parties. What do you think about it?
We do see this trend in Europe that in many countries populist parties on the right of the political spectrum are on the rise. I think the election results from the Austrian presidential elections yesterday are a clear signal that with a very clear message, with a message of being positive about the European Union, with a message of an open-minded international society, you can still win the voters and you can still convince the electorate in European countries.
How does it result affect on the increasing of populist parties in Europe?
I have mentioned that in many European countries in the last years we do see this trend of a rise of populist parties, of parties on the right side of the political spectrum, which in my opinion is due to several factors. It is the ongoing and intensifying globalization, which in many European countries has led to an increasing inequality. It is also due to the financial crisis which we saw in Europe in the last few years, which led to sometimes very strong rise in unemployment and fears of the electorate. But it is also due, I think, to the politics of countries governing in Europe. And obviously the governing parties have not taken enough attention to concerns of large part of the electorate. So I do think elections like the presidential elections in Austria are also a wake-up call to European politicians to rise up to the challenges which Europe faces in the last years and will continue to face over the next few years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.